Hi, welcome to the Coffee Chat Show here on Buzzin Pattaya, the show where we talk about things happening right here, right now, as well as general news, tips, information, and advice. Now, welcome back, Adam. Adam, how you doing, my man?
All good.
Good. Now, in part one, if you didn't see part one, there is a link to the video in the description below. Check it out when Adam was sharing about, well, we'll call it the more interesting time, shall we? Something like that.
That's good.
Good. So you've changed from gossip in the streets to now official news with Pattaya News, and you know you are what I consider to be one of the go-to places in terms of finding out what's going on in this town. I mean, how did that transition happen? What happened? How did you get involved in Pattaya News?
So, kind of going back to the first video, we didn't cover it that much, but I spent 5 years as a bar manager prior to that. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, now you're a journalist. I hate using that word because I've never claimed to be, you know, the person that knows absolutely everything or a licensed journalist, etc. What happened was I was getting tired of the bar scene, as I kind of summed up in part one. It was just becoming draining, constantly going to parties, drinking every day. You cannot be a bar manager and not drink. Well, okay, I know some people are going to disagree with me, but the industry that I was in and working at a Nightwish bar and working on Soy 6 and a customer-facing role, you had to drink every day.
Okay.
So that was really draining. So in the end of 2017, I had started in 2014, so it was going on 4 years as a bar manager, which is a long time. Most guys don't make it that long. I spent 5 years full-time and still did some part-time work up until the bars closed. And I was just getting tired of it, and I was looking for something else to do, something professional. And Brian Flowers approached me and said, well, AJ, you've got my nickname AJ, you've got a background, you're a good writer, you've got all this stuff, you're good at computers, why don't we find something that fits that? And so we kind of melded brains together and said, well, what about a news website? And we've had, at this time in 2017, there were several news sites in Pattaya. Some of them are still around. You had Pattaya People, which is now, Niels Kolov is a friend of mine. We're in Rotary together. But he stepped back from news.
Sure. And
they weren't really covering news anymore. They were just covering social events and things like that. You had Pattaya One, which became an aggregator. And at that time, in the past, they were pretty good doing local news, et cetera, but they eventually became an aggregator, which that's a fancy word for those not familiar with it, of basically copying or rewriting other people's news. And you know what, that's a valid business industry. There's a lot of, I'm not knocking that, there's a lot of businesses out there that do that and do it well, and there's a huge audience for going ahead and for getting aggregated news. Like, we're also friends with the Tiger that does a lot of aggregated news, and we actually give them permission to take our news, as with Thai Visa, which is now like Asian Now or Asian Now.
Yeah, it's changed, isn't it?
Yeah. We're friends with all of those, but we wanted to do something different because what Pattaya didn't have, at least not majorly. Last but not least, you have Pattaya Mail, which was the only one of the three that we felt was really still focusing on local news, real news, had their own news teams, was not aggregating, but they've started to change, but at least in 2017, they're almost entirely focused on their newspaper model and not on social media.
Okay.
And we really wanted to focus on digital media and social media. So we said, well, why don't we give this a shot? So in December 2017, we designed the WordPress site and we launched right around Christmas. And up until about 2019, for another year and a half, over a year and a half, I continued to work at the bar as we started to grow and started to get an audience. When we started the news, absolutely, we did aggregate because we really had no choice. We didn't know a lot of what was going on, and we learned from our mistakes. I learned a lot more from my mistakes than my successes, but we're growing, and we're growing at a very fast pace because we were trying to focus on being neutral, being unbiased, being honest about what was going on while still staying within Thai law. Mm-hmm. Okay. And really trying to focus on local and regional news and not giving people news from goats in India, or not viral news, not clickbait news, and we really grew an audience from that. So we had grown enough that in 2019 in the summer, I managed to step out of the bar full time.
Okay.
And that's when we became fairly serious about the news, but we didn't become deadly serious, as in really growing the business, kind of like we were talking about Buzzin Pattaya, until about just over a year ago when COVID-19 hit. And COVID-19 has devastated Pattaya and devastated most businesses. We've grown during that period, and I say this with humility, and thank you to everybody that's tuned into us, because we've grown a lot because we've really focused on, quite honestly, trying to get out all the bullshit, and here's what's going on, here's what the government's reporting, here's what the restrictions are, what they aren't. So we quadrupled in size after the pandemic hit. And we've managed to retain a lot of that audience during a very difficult time. And not only have we grown, we've also expanded our team. When we started in 2017, it was me on a Facebook page and the WordPress website. And Brian with the technical support of the servers and kind of the direction and strategy. Now we have about a dozen, one of them's over there on a computer working on videos today. We have a dozen full-time staff, and we have about over 20 to 30 freelancers, which get us our news. We try not to do any aggregation anymore. All of our news is either sourced locally through our own reporters or through freelancers at a network of areas through Bangkok, Phuket, all Thai. The only foreigner that really involved is myself and Brian. Everybody else in the company is Thai.
One of the questions I want to ask you, Adam, and you've just touched on it there, is obviously content is king. You've got to have as much content as you can. And also the quality of the content has to be really up there, because otherwise people, like you say, they just sift through it and then, just rewritten stuff where it's just trash, they don't watch it. One thing I would say is, and what we do on our Discord groups, we often share your news as a daily thing into our Discords, because we get the news from you guys, say, look guys, here's the link, have a look, this is what they've said today. How do you verify the news that you get? What's your system? Because if I sent you an article and said, oh, such and such has done this and done that, how do you verify what you actually produce?
So it's very easy for local. National is a bit different. So for our local news, we have as stated, we have our full-time reporters. We have two and a half full-time reporters that do absolutely nothing but go out and get stories for us all day. Okay. A lot of the videos that you see, we have our own YouTube channel. It's nowhere near yours because we don't try to be entertaining on our channel. We're news, and we're short to the point, but that's been growing a lot too. Cheap plug, the Pattaya News.
There's a link in the description. Check it out. There you go.
But in terms of that, all the videos and stuff, that comes from our own team. And we have freelancers. There's an association of freelancers here that work with us directly and work for us. And so every day I wake up, whatever time that might be. I still like to wake up a little bit late. I'm not an early to rise guy.
We're on different planets there then.
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning, I'm up.
That's usually when I go to bed. But a lot of it's because I'm still working.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wake up and immediately I'll go on to Line, and we use Line to communicate, and I'll see what happened. And we communicate through our Line groups, so they'll send me all the pictures, the text is in Thai, all the videos and stuff that they've filmed through the night, and we immediately get to work. Our video guy who's sitting nearby starts editing the footage and putting it together so that we put it on our YouTube channel or Facebook Watch later in the day, or TikTok. TikTok's huge for us. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Wow. TikTok is incredibly huge, but it's mostly a Thai audience. That's the thing too, is a lot of our foreign audience doesn't realize don't realize that we actually have a Thai side that is bigger than our English website. That Thai side didn't start until 2019, but the Thai side is now, especially on TikTok and Facebook, is bigger than the English side, but they're two very different ways of monetizing the business. And two different customer groups. Our news, for the foreigners that are watching this that may speak Thai, our news in Thai is often very different than the news in English, because you're focusing on two different groups of people with very different priorities. Thai audience is not interested in if there's going to be a visa extension or in vaccination for foreigners. Foreigners are not interested in what's going on at the local temple for the most part.
Yeah, true.
So, also, a Thai audience has a completely different mindset around gore and blood and what can be shown versus a English mindset. We're all concerned about what could the family think of showing a corpse or a body, whereas a lot of the Thai audience feels that that's appropriate. So the stuff on our Thai, although we still censor and blur, tends to be a bit more raw.
I wanted to ask you about that, because one of the things that I noticed, especially in the news, like you said about you censor the pictures, the videos, and blur them out. But it seems like no matter what accident happens in this city, there are people there with I mean, how do they know what's going on?
Well, those are our guys. So what happens is most of the time our team is sitting at the police station or sitting with Sawang Borabun, the main rescue service for the area, and we go with them. We're on the radios, we're on the chat, we're invited to go most of the time, and so I personally go? I have gone before, but I don't really need to. I hate traveling, as mentioned in the first video, and quite honestly, although I see it in pictures, in the pictures I see before it gets out to the audience, they're not censored, and that was a tough learning curve. Yeah. But I don't really want to see it in person. I can deal with the pictures, but so I stopped going out in person. But yeah, so our team is right there. That's how we get the content locally. I'll speak about nationally next. And they go out, they take the pictures, take the video, they write it up in Thai, and then they send it to us in line. We have several full-time writers for us. And the writers they're Thai people, and they translate it to English. Then I edit it. They do a pretty good job, but it does need editing. And then we put it out for publishing. We've got a video guy, photo guy, IT guy that put all that together for the website. Although I personally usually put everything and post it on the social media channels. And in the final person before it's published. On a big article, like the other night, there was a raid in Treetown on people that were out drinking.
I read that.
I heard that. Read that.
Treetown. What's going on in Treetown? There's some good news in Treetown. There's a new bar.
I heard there was a new bar coming.
Yes. In Treetown, apparently.
Apparently.
We'll move on from that.
Whenever it can open. Anyways, a whole bunch of people were arrested, and from the time that came in from our team to getting out for publishing was about an hour. Which we can boost up. And of course we prioritize things. National, we have freelancers right now in Phuket, which we're looking to grow Phuket bigger in the future. We're probably going to make a English language Phuket website as well. And yes, you had the Phuket News, and I feel they do a phenomenal job. But we just want to kind of put ourselves out there. Again, we don't want to aggregate. A lot of our news is, as I mentioned earlier, is fully given with permission to Asian Now, the Tiger, as long as they backlink to us and we get that traffic back to the website. That's fine with us. Yeah. For the big national stories, we do a lot of fact checking. We do a lot of checking through some trusted Thai news sources, trusted Thai reporters. We have always aimed to not be the fastest. A lot of people are like, oh, you posted this 8 hours after another website did. There's a reason for that. We're fast when we need to be, like the Treetown thing. Yeah. But we really want to fact check things. There's a lot of, I hate the word fake news, but early news, using people's opinions as news, gossip out there, and you can often get things wrong. And we have made mistakes. But for the most part, we made very few because we take the time to fact check it before delivering the news to people, because that was very important to me, as we wanted to become a trusted, reputable source and not what are the goats doing in India today to try to get clickbait traffic.
You mentioned there, and I'm going to put you on the spot now, but you mentioned there that you've made mistakes. Looking back over your time in the Pattaya News, what springs to mind as the one thing you think, at the time we thought it was correct, we later found out it was wrong, and you think, oh man, that was just a major clanger. What's been like
we've been lucky that in the several years of doing this, we have never had any sort of legal action. we've had a couple phone calls from police. I'll share one that were unhappy with the news, but again, there's not as many restrictions on the news here as people think they are. But we don't do, because I still get messages every day. We don't do expose or investigative reporting. It's very difficult to do in Thailand anyways because of slander and libel laws, but because we don't do investigative reporting, it keeps us out of trouble. And it keeps us from making enemies and having lots of drama. So that has saved us a lot. And by investigative reporting, I mean Bob, who hates his landlord, this is a true example, sends me an email that wants me to write a long, angry article about how his landlord has ruined his condominium and his property, and it sends me 40 photos. That's not lovely, but okay. That's a real issue for Bob. But we're not in that business. Now, if you go to a lawyer and you file police reports and go through all those steps, then yes, we could write an article about it, but we're also going to talk to the landlord about what they think to get both sides of the story. And a lot of people aren't fans of that.
The question for you there, Adam, is obviously you just mentioned there you get a lot of people sending in stories. Out of all the stories you get, I'm guessing you get hundreds every day. I mean, how many of them do you think? Well, not
hundreds, but yeah.
I mean, when do you sit and think, why on earth have you sent me that? I mean, like, how much, like, not trolls, I don't want to use that word, that's the wrong description.
We get a lot of people that, and again, I talked about this in the first video, it's a small town with a lot of diverse personalities and backgrounds, and a lot of people have problem with person A, and person A has a problem with person B, and they want us to write a story about it. I'm sorry, that's not a story, that's a personal issue. As for our biggest problem we had at the news that I can immediately recall, there's two short stories. Number one was, this was very early. This was in 2018, we were still learning. And I got a story that a foreigner had jumped off a roof of a building in central Pattaya. I initially, I read some comments online that he initially had jumped off, I don't want to name the hotel, had initially jumped off the roof of a hotel. He had actually jumped off the roof of Central Festival, but many people thought due to where he landed, he had jumped off the roof of a nearby hotel.
Oh, okay.
So we wrote incorrectly that he had jumped off the roof of that hotel, and the hotel management called us within 20 minutes. They were not happy with that, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And so we learned a lot about incidents like that in general. To kind of name the vicinity and not specific businesses. Also, in Thailand, many people are afraid of ghosts.
Oh, I know, it's mad, isn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah. So
crazy.
In the West, people are like, there was this horrible shooting or thing at this condo, but you didn't name what condo it was at. It can actually get us in legal trouble. And the condo hates when we name them because they're afraid that people won't want to stay there anymore because they're afraid of ghosts or people that died. The second thing was, we posted a viral video, some of you guys might remember this, about 2 years ago, of a group of, I think they were Chinese, a group of Chinese tourists that were very drunk in front of a disco on Walking Street that had the crap beaten out of them by bouncers.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, and we were the first to post that, and it went absolutely viral everywhere with millions of views of these two Chinese, and quite honestly, the video, before we posted, again, learning, we probably should have posted more context to it because the guys had been thrown out of the club. They were very drunk. They were caught. No, they shouldn't have been beaten up for it, but they were being a real problem prior to it.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the police were not happy, so we did get a little phone call about that. But again, it was like, look, you guys have published it. It is what it is. And they ended up turning a negative story into a positive story because, of course, the next day, here's all the security guards weighing and apologizing on TV and on our footage with our reporters, and the Chinese tourists accepted the apology. And they actually admitted that they were under the influence. And
you mentioned Walking Street, and funny enough, that's a bit of a hot topic right now. So, as you're the man with your finger on the pulse, you know, you've got a lot of journalists out there, a lot of reporters coming back to you time after time. The common conception right now, as we sit here, is that Walking Street is done. It's finished. That's it. It's over. They're going to knock it down. They're going to build whatever they're going to build, etc., etc. What is your honest opinion with all the information that you managed to gather? What do you see the future of not only just Walking Street, but Pattaya as a city?
Okay. So first off, I talked about how we get our news from our full-time reporters and our part-time reporters. They also attend every single, I don't go myself because my Thai's not great. It's getting better. I can read it better than I can, because I read everyday articles in Thai. I can read it now better than I speak it. But they go to every meeting, every city hall meeting, every city council meeting, every planning meeting, they're there. And that's how we get all that information very quickly, because it's then sent to us by our team through our chats. We edit it and put it out. So not only is this not gossip or what Bob, who's sitting in London right now and hasn't been here in 7 years, thinks is going to happen. And I know Bob's on the chat. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Good to see you. But that's not who we listen to or get our news from. It's no secret that Walking Street has been, I wouldn't say it's been hit the hardest. I'd say the hardest was Soy 7 and Soy 8 and Soy Arab. Soy Arab has probably actually been hit the hardest by this, because there's no local Middle Eastern or Arab and Indian businesses. Indian businesses in general were hit very hard. But Walking Street was one of the hardest hit areas. And we actually put out on our news the other day kind of what their vision for it is of artist renditions. And in that artist rendition, all the buildings on the beach side are still there. The rumor that they're taking away licenses from all the buildings on the right, that's false. What they're actually doing is they're looking at the buildings on the right that may go way out too much into the ocean. There's a couple of them that may have to make some adjustments. Not knocking down the whole area, especially in terms of sewage and concerns about sewage going out to the sea. And this is all part of their current project that they're doing of moving all the electrical cables underground on Walking Street, which is a mess, but they hope to be done by January. Once that's done, they're going to repave the entire street, and they're going to do some changes in terms of what the area looks like. Their vision, and this is directly from the meetings of Walking Street, is for it to be a bustling area in the daytime, like parts of Las Vegas, and nighttime. What they would really like is a huge group of tourists, yes, probably Chinese, go to Go Larn for the day, enjoy the island, get off the island at a nice pier. They do want to knock the waterfront down, by the way. They're battling to knock it down. It is going to come down, but who knows when. That waterfront is the ugly condo at the end of Valley High.
Been about 10 years.
So they're going to get off at the pier, and then what they want them to do is to walk through Walking Street, not just at night to like look at some guys pretending to hit each other, but to actually have restaurants and businesses and places to shop that are still high end. And at night, they do still want nightlife, nightclubs, places to go to. Do they want it to be the absolute red light district it is now? Probably not, but they're not going to ban it. Now, that being said, the area, and we can talk about this a little, the area that has kind of most benefited from the pandemic has been the Treetown, LK Metro, Central Soy Buakaw area, because quite honestly, a lot of the expats, that's where they hang out, that's where they had hung out. So a lot of the infrastructure and new bars.
Really?
Hint, hint.
Is there really new bars out there?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Don't believe what you hear.
New bars in the planning in that area have really kind of, boosted that up. I don't think Walking Street's it's going to change, but it's not going to go away. And a lot of the businesses there had already been changing for an audience that is not Western foreigners, which is probably most of who's watching this channel. Prior to the pandemic, the area that was most growing, and I'm friends with several people that work with them and own these, was the Indian nightclubs and discos. And contrary to belief, they make bank. You walk in, and people who think that, Indians don't spend any money. That's not true. You walk into some of these nightclubs, and there's bottles everywhere, guys throwing out thousands everywhere. It's mind-blowing. And they were hit very hard by the pandemic. But every day to our news, without fail, we get dozens of messages from guys in India. When can I come back? When can I come back? When can I come back? And that area of Walking Street is going to recover very quickly the moment Indians can return. And I know guys on this channel may not be excited about that, but that's a nightlife area, and it will bring traffic to that area. Some of the other businesses have no intention of going anywhere. Sapphire Go-Go has no intention of going anywhere. They've actually put money into remodeling, planning on opening. Windmill's not going anywhere. Skyfall plans to reopen. And then you've got places like iBar and the former JP bar. It's now a nightclub, but I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
The JP bar. Oh, not Republic.
JP Republic.
Yeah,
that's it. JP. They're planning on reopening too. So a lot of these are just kind of mothballing, to use a term that I've heard from other people, for now until things get better. So I do think Walking Street's going to recover. It's going to look different. Quite honestly, a lot of expats and regular visitors don't bother going down there anyways. One thing that had also changed during the pandemic, and a big success story, was Panda Nightclub. Panda Nightclub, prior to the pandemic, had focused primarily on Chinese and Korean visitors and Japanese. After they lost all that, they rebranded into a Thai nightclub and were arguably, up until the most recent closure in April, the busiest Thai nightclub in Pattaya.
Wow.
And so you could see some more Thai nightclubs decide, depending on how expensive it would be to get in, end up in that area too. So I think it's going to change and look a bit different, but Panda's success had a lot of people raise eyebrows, because before, people had not thought that a Thai nightclub could succeed on Walking Street, and Panda was arguably not just the busiest Thai nightclub, but the busiest nightclub period. And yes, I'm including iBar when things were open in the pandemic period.
Interesting you say about the Thai nightclub, because also what I've noticed and seen, particularly over the last year, there seems to be a lot more people from Bangkok, Thai people from Bangkok, coming down into Pattaya now. Correct.
Up until April 10th, which is when the most recent shutdown shuttered our nightlife, hospitality, and tourism industry, we were seeing a lot of success, especially last year. We were shut twice, for those who may not have followed, 3 times actually. We were shut most recently though, 2 days before New Year's, which was a huge devastating thing for businesses. But that only lasted 5 weeks. When this most recent shutdown happened in April, a lot of us, myself included, also felt at that time it would be no more than 2 months at the most. The fact that we're sitting here going into month 5 and is pretty devastating to people. But domestic tourism had really saved a lot of businesses here. And contrary to belief, you probably know this, but a lot of viewers don't, a large number of people did go through that quarantine process, did go through ASQ. Every week I was meeting people who had gone through that quarantine process. And when the Phuket Sandbox started, it was hopeful, it still is hopeful, that a lot of those people in the Sandbox would then want to travel to Pattaya and spend money here. And they would if anything was open. I think going into this holiday season, a lot of people are like, well, are they going to let things open? Are they not? I'll get to that later, but they really need to at least start with focusing on domestic tourism again, the Thais, foreigners that are in the country, and that alone will allow businesses to recover long enough until international tourism can resume at a wider scale, which I do believe will be next year.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the interview. I think what I want to do is ask you, I guess, the question that everybody wants the answer to. So I'm going to put you on the spot, and you know the question because I know your mind's racing ahead thinking, I know what he's going to ask me. You get asked this all the time.
Am I single? I am, absolutely. I'll leave my phone number afterwards.
There you go, see, how about that? Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. In terms of where we are right now, and obviously we're in lockdown, then we're going to reopen. There's going to be the drive for domestic tourism to try and boost to the restaurants, etc., and hotels. In all honesty, and I know that we can't hold you to this, but in all honesty, with the knowledge that you have of this city, with the inroads that you get through Pattaya News and all the people you know, when do you think international tourism will resume?
So 2 days ago, those of you who watch our news are probably aware of this. The government made a very, to some people surprising, although I'm not surprised, announcement that we need to live with COVID-19, and that they're shifting the strategy from zero COVID to treating every single case as an emergency, to gradually shifting to living with COVID-19. And most people, not everyone, but most people seem to feel that this is the way that they need to move forward on this. And this isn't a new strategy. Really, when the Prime Minister back in June said that he's opening the country in October, a lot of people laughed, but they didn't really read the whole story. He never said that we're going to open the country in October with no quarantines, no rules, let everybody fly in and back to normal. No, he said that it's not a countdown. Technically, the country's already open with Phuket and now some of the other islands like Koh Samui. That's all part of this plan. They plan on opening areas that are well enough vaccinated and living with COVID. Now, currently, Pattaya and Chonburi, Pattaya specifically, is about 33% vaccinated. We're a long ways away from that 70%.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of reasons for that, and the biggest reason is because they've allocated the vast majority of vaccines to Bangkok. Over the past several days, we've seen something that, again, was probably surprising to many people, but I was expecting it, as I had said on other interviews, that come in late August, early September, we're going to start seeing an uprise in vaccinations here in Pattaya. So many guys were probably pleasantly surprised to see lines of hundreds of foreigners at Central Festival get recently, over the past several days, getting their vaccines finally. The process for Thais has started to pick up as well also in getting vaccinations. That's going to be a key to opening up the area. On the other side, and it's a long answer, but it's good that I paraphrase it. Thailand is not, some people are like, well, they need to wait till Thailand's 70% vaccinated for the whole country to open. That's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen for a lot of reasons. Most other countries have not. But the biggest reason is Thailand is not giving a nice magical furlough for everybody to stay home. They're not giving moratoriums. Bar owners are not getting nice paychecks like they were in the UK or Australia to stay closed. There's nothing. And the negative side of lockdowns, if you go down for a walk on Jomtien Beach at night, there's hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of homeless people everywhere. People in food lines because the government is not providing them financial aid that they need. There are some programs out there, contrary to belief, but they're very minimal, and they mostly target people that had Social Security. And in Thailand, the vast majority of workers are informal. And so all that, from the whole lockdown problem to people not having financial aid to the economy losing literally billions of baht every month from everything being closed, they really have no choice but to at least ease the restrictions. All week long, they've already been stating, they being the government, that we're going to ease some restrictions here in September. Okay. Bars are probably not going to be on the agenda at first. And I do still think bars will be open by the latest November. But I think we're going to start again with a gradual reopening. We're a maximum control zone right now, which basically means everything's closed, including the beaches, except for supermarkets and pharmacies and essential stuff. So I think they're going to start with reopening some in September. Some of the public areas, again, probably malls. A lot of people are like, malls, oh, so the big owners can make money. Don't forget, malls employ, here in Pattaya, Terminal 21 and Central Festival, thousands of people. That's thousands of people who really, some of them might have Social Security and might be getting 50% of their pay, but many of them are not. And so malls and dine-in at restaurants, because the restaurant lobby in Thailand is very powerful. Do I think we're going to be open for everybody to fly in without quarantine by this Christmas? No, I don't. I don't think we're going to see a wider scale of tourism until Songkran. I really think they're going to target Songkran as having a proper Songkran next year for the first time since 2019. That's their biggest holiday. But I do think that they're going to do everything in their power to get domestic tourism up and going. And I do think we're going to see a Pattaya style sandbox, but it's not going to be the type you guys want. The Pattaya sandbox is not going to be like Phuket, because we've been at the meetings, we've seen the plans.
It's Koh Lan, isn't it, in Koh Lan?
That's one proposal, but it's not finalized. But basically, it is going to be a safe and sealed, which means for 7 days you can hang around your resort or go to places that probably most of the viewers here don't want to go, like go diving, go to an island, go to a temple with a tour group. But after 7 days, you can do what you want. So I do think it's a hell of a lot better than being stuck in a hotel room for 14 days.
Absolutely.
Like is the current ASQ.
Well, all I can say is, Adam, I think you've got that pretty much nailed, in fairness. That's kind of how I see things, and I think that definitely by Christmas there's got to be some form of movement, and definitely by Songkran next year it has to be as close to opening as we can possibly get. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed, let's hope. And guys, you're watching this, hopefully you'll look back and you'll say, do you know what, Adam, he was spot on. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much. Guys, if you want to find out more and connect up with Adam, I'll put the links in the description below to the Pattaya News, Facebook pages, all the ways in their YouTube channel, the ways you can connect and keep up to date on. I use their channel all the time. They do have their finger on the pulse. It is good, informative news, so it's definitely worth checking out. But guys, that's it from us today. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. As always, guys, remember, hit the subscribe button and also the bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we bring out a new video. Check out our members area. More and more members are joining each and every day. And join our Discord group. There's so many like-minded people just like you guys that are on there chatting away to each other and killing time, which is what we've got plenty of right now. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And please, as always, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.